Gareth Newham from the Institute for Security Studies. Good morning to you, Gareth. Is this going to help or hinder our security if we are to extend the lockdown and getting more SANDF members on the streets?
Well, certainly the President seems to think so, and I'm sure many members of his cabinet feel the same way. It's the largest deployment of soldiers since the 1994 first democratic elections in South Africa. But however, we don't know exactly how the soldiers will be deployed or if all of them will be deployed. I think what's happened is the President has sent this letter to Parliament as a way of ensuring that he has access to 73,000 soldiers in case he needs them, rather than with a specific, clear deployment plan in mind, and has figured out how much that could cost. But they do different things. So right now they're there to assist the police with enforcing the lockdown regulations. They go on patrols, they hit roadblocks, they do coordinate search operations and patrolling the borders. But they also do other things, such as setting up field hospitals, screening people for the virus, and they could help with, for example, rebuilding bridges or assisting the health department. So there's various functions they could play. What functions they do play and how many of these soldiers are doing different functions, we don't yet know.
I mean, could they, for example, go out with counsellors? We know that many of them have been accused of taking food packages for themselves in some provinces. I mean, could they be a better force in handing out food packages, for example, taking the sort of softer approach to security than what we have seen them doing in some instances?
Indeed, this is where this could be an opportunity to improve the image of the security forces and of the government itself. When the police and soldiers, even if it's only a few of them, act badly and harm people and disregard the laws and regulations that they're supposed to adhere to, then it undermines not only those organizations, the military and the police, but the state generally. So bad policing, bad military behavior is a real threat to state credibility.
And it could certainly play into the fears of social unrest. People don't have food on their plates. Many of them have got nothing to lose. And when you see a police force or somebody from the defence force behaving badly, it certainly doesn't help.
Exactly. These can be trigger events for social discord, public violence. So as I say, bad policing, bad law enforcement is a problem and causes more problems than it solves. But if they're under clear instructions, clear accountability, and they are there and seem to be helping the communities, as you say, helping with handing out food parcels, making sure that people are social distancing in an orderly way, explaining the regulations carefully to people, upholding people's rights, demonstrating a level of professionalism and respecting people's dignity, then the opposite happens. Then they are seen in a positive way, they're seen as a service, and they serve to get people to adhere and consent to being policed and to adhering to the regulations. So that is what we hope happens. But of course, if they are confronted in situations where there might be public unrest, where people are upset about something, the problem with soldiers dealing with crowds and public unrest is that they're not trained really in that kind of function, and they typically only carry automatic weapons. So if they have to suddenly get confronted with an angry crowd of people who feel that food parcels are not being fairly distributed, or trying to loot a liquor store or something like that, they don't have rubber bullets, and they generally are not trained to disperse crowds like the public order policing units are. And that's where you might have serious problems emerging. What
about funerals? We have found out that they are one of the biggest sources of outbreaks, the fact that so many people are there, that drinking happens afterwards and all the lockdown rules are broken. How do you deal with cultural sensitivities and making sure that everybody is safe from a security point of view?
Well, you start with engaging with people through explaining why they need to adhere to the regulations. So you consult with people, you explain to the funeral homes, the parlours. When people are planning a funeral, ideally there'd be a local counsellor or a local leader who can go over to the person who's arranging the funeral and explain to them why they need to adhere to the regulations. So the idea is that you only rely on the security forces as an absolute last resort, because they're only trained to use force to achieve particular goals. That's what their purpose is. If people understand the regulations and the need for them and they therefore adhere to them, you do not need the police and the security. You only really need them if people are willingly disobeying the regulations for whatever reason. And even then, the police and military's first port of call should be to engage
All right, we've lost Gareth Newham there, but thanks for that, Gareth, if you can hear us.